What's up? This is Mark Lopes from Metal Church of Ross the Boss Band. Let us pray. And you're listening to Aftershocks TV. And don't forget to keep it fucking metal. Yeah.
All right. Welcome again, everybody, to another episode here of Aftershocks TV, right here on the CMS Network. Matt and Tom, we're back with you. Tom, what's happening, bud? How's your new year off to? Good start so far?
Yes, sir. I mean, listen, I loved looking forward to it and drinking too much and eating too much and go to bed too late and getting up too late, whatever. So I had a week of the kind of nonsense, but I said, you know what, enough already. I'm just a creature of habit. I was happy to get back. I'm going to be complaining a day from now about being back on it, but I'm happy to be just back to normal. I had an awesome Christmas period and New Year's and so on and so forth. So what about you, buddy? What's happening with you?
Yeah, say with me, man. I got a couple of weeks off here. It's been nice. Like you said, really, having a week or so with family in town, all that good stuff. But I'm like you, I'm a creature of habit. Even if I have a day or two where I'm just hanging with people and I'm not working on this stuff or other things, I get a little lost. I get a little like irritated in a way. You know what I mean? Because like same thing, creature of habit. But what the good thing is this week now I've got it's just me and I'm just I don't have a lot going on, which is great. So I can kind of get everything up to speed here with Aftershocks and and all this stuff for the network and everything we're doing here to start the show off. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, we're doing this. We're recording this during the daytime. I normally can't do that. So it's been nice. I got to say, I do miss working from home. I did a little bit over the pandemic, but at the same time, you know how it is. It's like it's good, but it's not good. I like also being out and about, all that good stuff. So, but it's been good. Like I said, having a good couple of weeks off and enjoying the last few days here. And, and obviously thinking about, the new year. I mean, first thing we've got to also talk about, we're going to get into later in the show here is talking about our albums of the year for 2023. A lot of great new albums, but I mean, it was a tough decision. I don't know about you, but it was tough to come up with 5 records.
I couldn't. Well, first of all, we had to come up with 5. So I did come up with 5, but I do have some honorable mentions. So not in order, but there's no way could I not mention, when I get to them, I have them right there. But you'll find when you get to my ones, so you got to watch for that. Mine are they're all over the place. They're within the metal rock genre, but it's all over the place. It'll go from X to A and so on. So yeah, I'm looking forward to jumping into that.
Fantastic. Awesome. Yeah. And this episode is going to be a little bit on the heavier side. Looks like, and it wasn't like we planned it that way. It just sort of came about that way. We are going to be, our interview this week, we're going to be interviewing a really cool doom metal band from Alabama called Ember. They had just put out a great record, their first self-titled release. They've had a bunch of EPs over the years, and we're going to talk to the band and really see what they're up to and just kind of give everyone a little taste of what they're about. A really good band everyone should check out. First thing I want to talk to Tom, I was as we do for Aftershocks, every week, every day, really, I get a lot of press releases, right, from all these rock and metal bands, established bands, underground bands, all that good stuff. And I think one of the reasons why this episode is kind of going to be a little on the heavier side is because, after going through these press releases and the amount of them that I do, because I really love listening to new bands and music, so I kind of go through as many of them as I can. But I'm coming across a lot of these bands, these heavy rock, maybe classic metal, stoner, doom, whatever it is, newer bands. I'm seeing a lot of them that have sort of that Sabbath-y tinge sound, maybe some blues, sound to them. They're really coming on here with a lot of these harsher vocals, which is interesting. Some death and black metal vocals on top of like just Sabbath-y blues riddled riffs. And I mean, I really like it. At first, I got to say though, it took me a second when I was hearing some of these bands. I'm like, I'm anticipating a different style of vocals that tend to come in after, introducing the music in the beginning of the songs and so forth. But I'm just hearing a lot of these harsher vocals on it. First, it took me by surprise. I would say I was put off, but I was just sort of like, okay, this is different. And after listening to a few of these bands, I'm really digging it, man. I really am. It's not something that's a brand new trend or anything, but it's definitely a bit different and unusual to see this amount of bands doing it. You know how it is. There's a lot of fans in that genre that are sort of purist. They don't really like a lot of harsh vocals. So some of these fans of that music might be a bit put off because of that. And that'll get into a discussion we're going to talk about in terms of blending genres and all that stuff. But I mean, we'll take a look at a band or two. We'll watch a video or a track or two just to give an example of what I'm talking about here. But yeah, I mean, have you come across any bands recently you've heard? Okay.
I have, because we were chit-chatting about this, and when you look at first of all, there's a few things going to happen here. Anybody who's not a black or death metal fan are going to go, right, that's it, I'm out, because even if the music is stellar, they hear the vocals of the Cookie Cutter or the Cookie Monster, or they hear the like the screamo type, black, whatever, they kind of go, okay, I'm out. So no matter how good the music is, you're out just because of the vocals. But and that's fine. If you don't like it, you don't like it. There's nothing wrong with that. But some of it, I'm not going to say I'm a huge fan of, but there is one band, and we'll talk about that in just a second, a band called Black Ryle, who I think are really good, and that took me by surprise. And I'm more of I do love death metal as a genre. Black metal I like less so. Death is more of my genre if I had to pick one. But I think what it is that even looking up some of the reviews, and I wrote some of it down, and said this band from Finland, Black Ryle, I just saw a review and it said they're a mix between Orange Goblin, Entombed, and Crowbar. And I said, yeah, that's probably about right, with the vocals on top. And then the other band we're going to talk about, Slaughter, I think they're called. That sounds like kind of like doomy metal with Danny Filth singing over the top. So it's very different. And they're two different bands too. I do have a preference for one. We'll talk in just a minute. But it's an interesting... I don't like calling it genre, subgenre. I don't know what it is. It's just a band doing what they do. And I guess it's up to you or anybody else to go, yeah, I'm digging that, or holy shit, I'm out. I can't take it.
No, and that's a good point. Like you said, I think a lot of times it's always that discussion of, stoner mixed with doom, mixed with this, I mean, it's just like enough already. You really just say, hey, it's a metal / heavy hard rock band. With just a bunch of, their own influences. It doesn't matter where it comes from. And that, a lot of that, obviously, I think, and this is something I'd love to get your take on, that we see here a lot in the States. I mean, just growing up here, being a part of scenes over the years, whether I was growing up going to shows or when I had my label or just be doing all the journalism and the shows we do for the network and everything. Here in the States, people are so, I think, preoccupied with scenes and with specific genres. So if you, like I was just kind of giving you an example before, I know there's a lot of people that I know in general, they love, stoner and doom stuff. But once you put in some harsher vocals and you take out the clean stuff, it's too heavy for me. That's a little too, everyone just steps away, from it. It doesn't matter. Everyone likes it really here because of the scenes they have, right? A lot of that's social, a lot of that's fashion. And so if you're bringing in something that's a little outside of that, a lot of fans tend to go, they back off from not like, even if they do like it, they don't want to admit it sometimes. It's just everyone kind of gets in their corners and they like it there and they stay there. Whereas from what I've noticed over the years, just from, reading or just talking to people and so forth, especially, like I said, with a lot of heavy rock and metal music fans from the UK and from Europe, is it doesn't bother them. Like we were talking a little bit about, we were going back I was saying to you, we were emailing and texting, and it was like, there was no problem. If you see a bill, especially a festival, obviously overseas, that has they could have it anywhere from Poison to Deicide. And it's no big deal. Or Lita Ford, on the stage with Slayer, no big deal. It seems like fans are in the UK and Europe aren't really it's not a big deal if you're like, yeah, I love Deicide, but yes, I also love Vixen. I mean, it's not a big deal. We're here. If you told people that, oh, no way, I can't.
No, you can't be.
You're crazy. So, I mean, have you noticed that yourself since living in the States, how different that is? Okay.
Well, I can remember when Richie and I'm going to talk about Richie all the time because he's a buddy of mine. Focus on metal. Check it out, everybody. Great podcast. But remember, Bob was on, and Bob wanted to hear about like a European perspective growing. Obviously, Bob was a big European fan and New Wabam and all that, but he wanted to hear our perspectives. And I think what it was, if you even take all the genres of music going back to the late 70s, just call it dinosaur rock, right? Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and all that. And they kind of then hair metal, then New Wabam came in, and then hair metal came in, and then grunge came in, and then new wave of American heavy metal came in, and then Black Death came in, whatever. I never jumped genres. I was listening to Dokken and I was listening to Cinderella. And then Pearl Jam came along and went, oh, who the fuck are these guys? These are pretty good. And I just kept listening to the other stuff. So I never switched genres because like grunge came in and it just killed the wingers of the world and Dokken and Bullet Boys and some of them deserve to die. Let's be quiet.
I agree. Yeah.
Come on.
True.
I mean, I don't. First of all, I don't know if I can mention some bands in case we get them on for future shows, but but some of them just needed to go away, right? Quite frankly, it got stupid.
It's stale and stupid. Yes.
Oh my God, it was just whatever. But then conversely, I never stopped listening. I still love 80s metal, and I'm not a huge grunge fan, but the bands in there I really, really do like. And still listen to them today. I think a lot of people in the US, and this is my perspective, looking in from the outside, going back to the early 90s, is that, well, I guess Cinderella are not cool anymore. So what's cool? Right, we're going to listen to those. Fuck you, Cinderella. Pearl Jam T-shirt goes on. And I never got that mentality. Good, you like it or you don't like it. You don't have to follow trends. But I think another reason is that obviously the US is one country, right? Obviously, West Coast and East Coast, New York versus LA, different beasts, but it's still the US, right? So still culturally the same, kind of mannerisms the same, likes the same pretty much. Whereas in Europe has a population roughly of the US, whatever it is, 320 million, I don't know. But if you have a festival in Germany, first of all, so you're dealing with different countries. But if you have a festival in Germany, you're going to have somebody coming in from Austria. You're going to have someone coming over from Belgium. You're going to have someone coming down from Holland. You're going to have someone coming across from Poland. So and then Poland is a big kind of death black metal scene. Germany is very thrash metal, whatever. So when you have a big Wacken or whatever those festivals are, even up in Scandinavia, Rock am Ring, I think, is that the one up in Scandinavia? But so you've got like 50,000, 100,000 people, and they're probably represented by 15 countries. So 15 countries have different cultures, different styles, and they're just bringing it all together. That's why you're seeing their perceived kind of eclectic, Judas Priest, and then you'll have Behemoth on the one gig or something like that. Which at Saxon are stalwarts on the rock on the scene over in Europe, not selling out arenas, but they're headlining festivals, and very often are right up there, right up at Amon Amarth and Behemoth. Like I said, I saw Behemoth recently, incredible band, incredible, but. Is it Nurgle or Nurgle? I never pronounce it.
Nurgle. I think it's Nurgle.
Nurgle. Let me go with that. But and I think that's some of the reasons why is just that there's a European, and then the Europeans are not as fickle. Again, I don't mean to be disrespectful to anybody. I live in the US, by the way, but they're not as fickle. They're not as trend conscious as the Americans, and they just you like it, you don't like it. And I think that's probably why those European festivals even today are ongoing. Super quick on that. I just looked this up recently. There's a festival in Italy taking place in mid-July or June, whatever, and they have the 2-day festival. Bruce Dickinson headlines day one. Get this for a lineup: Bruce Dickinson, The Darkness, Stratovarius, Timo something or other, Talca or something, Micah Monroe, which he's from Finland, and Richie Kotzen. Richie Kotzen is on a festival. The Winery Dogs are barely playing to 500 people. I saw them twice actually last couple of years. Awesome. And then on day 2, same festival, Emperor, Cavalera, Dark Tranquility, Moonspell, and Flesh God Apocalypse, whoever they are. They're obviously a death metal band. So this is not a discussion about something that's happened a couple of years ago. There's 2 days on one metal scene.
There you go.
Totally different.
Yeah. No, you're right. Richie Kotzen. I mean, exactly. He's more of like a rock blues, guy.
I know.
and he's playing all these death metal bands, and that's exactly what going to what we were saying about, and one of the things too that I've just from talking, it's interesting. A few years ago, well, more than a few years ago now, but I remember talking to the guy Joe and from Orange Goblin, the guitarist from Orange Goblin, and when I went to see them, and my wife was asking him, "Oh, what's just like asking like the difference between the crowds, between UK and the States." Automatically I said, "Oh, hon, the UK and Europe, hands down, is a lot, better." And he was like, "Well, not necessarily." I mean, I was telling him, I think he was just trying to be nice to me, but but one of the things that we've heard from a lot of, by him and a lot of just, musicians from the States, they'll tell you this. I mean, I've asked this a million times, especially for the bands here that are bigger. I mean, there's so many bands here in the States that are much. I mean, they have a huge fan base in Europe and have virtually nothing here. That's right. And a lot of they say is because when you are a fan in Europe, for one, you're a fan for life.
That's right.
People will go and see you well into the 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever it is, if they liked you growing up. I mean, they're a fan for life, And I could just tell, even from talking with you, and just some of the people that I am friends with from overseas, you can see that. I mean, whatever, they grew up with these bands when they were like teenagers, and they're still going to see them well in the 40s and 50s. And that's the difference, I think, between here and then the States. Obviously, here a lot different because it is more like trendy. It's more like, well, yeah, I used to listen to that music when I was this age. They just, I don't know what it is. It's just people tend to, have trends, but but also they're just more closed-minded when it comes to rock and metal. I mean, you just see so many rock and metal fans that just get stuck into like this, the good old years of their golden, whatever you want to call it, their heyday when they were younger. They love that type of music, and they just don't get into anything else as time goes on. They listen to it. It's not my thing. It's not my thing. They're just a little bit more.
It's lazy, but I think it's also lazy. You're not prepared to give it a shot. It's like putting on Sirius and you just want to hear either the same songs or the type. I think there's laziness involved. It's not giving a band a shot or explore or walk your dogs and just immerse yourself in a song or two. And then if you don't like it, you go, nah, it's not for me. Great, you give it a shot. That's fine. But I think too, Matt, there's something that kind of you touched on about the bands themselves didn't do themselves any favors. I'm going to give you an example that if you take a band like a Dokken or Motley or whoever, right? They're the easy ones, like the Rats, whatever. They didn't do a whole lot of touring outside of Europe, outside of the US.
Yes,
like that was their main market. Rat were selling 2-3 million units and Dokken were 1 to 2, whatever it was. So they just said, well, fuck it, we don't need to go anywhere else. So then when grunge came in and kicked their ass, they didn't know where to go because they didn't build that following overseas. Now let's go the opposite side of that. Look at Bon Jovi. Whether you like him or not, that's irrelevant. And I do like some Bon Jovi, but Bon Jovi, I saw Bon Jovi 14, 15 times over the years because they when they went on a tour, they went on obviously they were a bigger band, I get it, and they had the means and whatever, but they never didn't tour Europe. I saw them on from the Slippery tour right up to 3-4 years ago, whatever it was. But their latest album is a pile of dog shit, by the way. The 2020, whatever it's called. So bad. As a fan, I say that. But anyway, but my point is that they had this huge base overseas. So when grunge hit in 1991 or whatever, Bon Jovi's, obviously, their stock went down in the US, even though they could probably fill an arena. They were still doing arenas and stadiums all over the world because they never forgot those fans, because they had good management. They had someone like John Bon Jovi. I've read stories about him where he was so driven and he was clever and he was smart, whereas a lot of the other bands never had a fan base. Take Cinderella as an example. They were platinum arena selling band over a year. They were selling clubs in the UK because they maybe did a tour every 5 years. I saw Cinderella at Donington, I think in 86 or 87, and they were the opening band in 86, 87, whilst Night Songs were selling 2 million copies in the US. They just, they never gave the European or the world market any attention. And then when they needed it, the Europeans and everybody else said, well, fuck you, because you never came over here. And that's what happened.
That is a great point. And you're right. A lot of those 80s bands, the hair metal bands, whatever you want to call them, you're right. Listen, a lot of those bands, they didn't leave LA. No. A lot of those bands, they just played locally, got signed because of just being around locally and fans liking them. Maybe a tour here or there in the US, but yeah, I mean, you're right. They did. I mean, that was the days of MTV, right? So MTV just,
You didn't
yeah,
need
you
to.
said you didn't need to. You didn't need to tour.
No.
But great point as you brought up about, I mean, Bon Jovi's a great point. I remember being, God, around 2000, I think it was around 7. I was actually overseas in Indonesia. Huge there. I remember when that "Have a Nice Day," whatever that song was. I remember just watching that thing was on the TV just all the time. Every hour they were playing that song and
With
that
the
video.
exception of the Slippery tour, I actually saw him 2 nights in a row. I saw him on the first, and they used to always start in Ireland because Ireland geographically is the first country you jump to. So we saw him pretty much on the opening night of every single tour. And I went to see him 2 nights in a row, and I was living 2 hours away. Like I had to do a 2 hour round trip, 4 hour round trip, 2 days in a row. But that was Slippery, and they were playing to, I think it was called the Pint Theatre in Dublin, maybe 7,000, whatever it was. But I don't think I saw him. I've never seen him not play a stadium in Ireland, and that's 50,000 people. And Ireland's a small country.
Sure,
50,000 people they were playing to in the 90s.
Wow.
Go figure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, great management by them to keep, like you said, that's how they were able to not just survive, but even strive.
Keep going over and over.
Once
constant
grunge
tour
came
stuff.
in and knocked that out. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point.
Yeah.
You're right. Like you said, those hair metal bands, those 80s bands out of LA or so forth, they just didn't tour overseas, like you said.
They
So
never
that's
give it a shot. What they used to do sometimes, I used to read Kerrang religiously, and they do like a UK tour, and they play the Marquee in London, obviously famous in Hammersmith, I think it is. And then they play maybe a gig in Scotland, a gig in Wales, and maybe one in Dublin. That was their Irish and English tour, like 4 dates. I mean, come on, people, whatever. And then they didn't do enough of that. It's like if you don't do something, if there's no repetition in what you do, it just doesn't happen. And they didn't need to. They were selling 1 million copies in the US, and they were probably playing a nice handy 7,000 or 10,000 people a night, thinking the gravy train will never stop. And it did stop, and they died.